I'd had this dream about my master, who I had learnt Feng Shui from. And in my dream, she was coming and she was touching my bedroom wall. And she's like, there's something here, there's something here. And I didn't think much of it. And I didn't finish the dream because my cat jumped on me and woke me up in the middle of the night. So I was like, oh, damn, I wanted to hear the rest of the message. But fast forward like a week or two later, I was with a friend of mine and we were looking for different properties for her. She was thinking about buying a house. And her husband had an EMF reader. And I'm like, oh, what's that? And because his wife had been sick before, he wanted to make sure that there was no EMF issues with any of the houses that they were potentially going to buy. And so he says, oh, do you want to borrow it and check out your house? And what was actually quite interesting is that exactly where my master had been touching the wall in my bedroom, I had a really high EMF reading in the wall. So there must have been some faulty electricity.
Welcome to the Acid for Squares podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Dahl.
And I'm Cody Blue. And if you like what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, rate, comment, hit that notification button. It helps us out a lot. We'd appreciate it a lot. And on today's episode, we have our friend Nicola Paradis, who is a Feng Shui expert. And we appreciate you joining us, sister. Thank you for being on.
Oh, I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are super excited to get to sit down with you. We've met a couple times and hung out a little bit, but
I think of myself as like a Feng Shui novice, but
yeah,
which is a total lie. It's literally from just like, I'm like, what do I do? Something's not right in here. How did you even get into this world of Feng Shui?
Yes, because we do use it. We just don't know much.
We don't know much.
We try to use Feng Shui.
Even with me, it was sort of a late start with the Feng Shui. I mean, my background is in architecture, so I'm an architect and interior designer, so I was always really just interested in space and how space feels.
Oh, cool.
So maybe it was a natural progression after coming to LA. It's sort of combining this love of great space with then a love of good vibes in a good space.
That's so LA of you.
That's fascinating. Is it LA of you, or did you have a spiritual or energetic experience that sort of made you realize that energy is a big part of designing a space?
I think how it came about for me is I was actually really interested when I was younger. When I was about 10 years old, I think Feng Shui sort of came into it was on my radar, but there just wasn't really a lot of material. There was nothing to read. There were maybe like 1 or 2 books out. So even as a child, I had some interest in it. And I don't even know how that really came across my lap at that time. But there really wasn't anything that I could get into in terms of information. There wasn't really a lot that was provided. So then I think many, many years later, how it sort of came back into being is that I had already moved to LA and I've been designing like decor and interior decor, and I had my small business doing that. And one day I was literally just organizing the house, doing some like Marie Kondoing of the house. And I had in the background, I had some YouTube playing, and my master who I studied from, she had a YouTube video on. And just from some of the tips I looked at from that video, I did just a couple of random changes in my house. And then literally I noticed overnight that when I moved a bin out of like in my office, I had a garbage bin that was in my success direction. And so I moved that out. And then the next morning there was a lady that had been umming and ahhing about placing like a really huge order for Australia for maybe like 2 years. So out of the blue, she came back 2 years later and then finally placed that order. And so that was within like 9 hours of me moving this garbage bin. And then I just noticed there were little tweaks that I was doing. And then when I saw a very, very fast results happening from that, I thought, okay, I need to get more into this Feng Shui thing. And I thought, I really need to get certified. I think this is something that I want to do because I'm seeing the results so quickly.
Whoa, pause. Where is the success direction to make sure we have no trash there? Where is it?
Okay, so the success direction, it's different for everybody. So that's where sort of it gets a little bit complicated.
Okay.
So I'll refer you to my website later on at the end of the podcast. But basically, it depends on your birthday. It depends when you're born. So it's the year of your birth. And it sort of depends, like if you if you're born before or after Chinese New Year, or it's actually marked from the lunar New Year. And so there are 9 different sort of archetypes, like Feng Shui archetypes. They're also referred to as Kua numbers. And then depending on what your number is, you have 4 good directions and 4 bad directions. So one of those directions is your success direction. So for example, like your 4 good directions would be your success direction, your relationship direction, your health direction, and your wisdom direction. So everyone has a slightly different one or a different mixed, and it depends on your birth date.
I had no idea that this was even a part of it.
Yeah.
So if you're picking up like a normal feng shui book, what the normal things that people tell you, does that mean that doesn't work?
Well, it does. The thing is that once you go down the rabbit hole of feng shui, it's so much more complex than you ever think, because I think a lot of people are aware, especially like, LA people that are more into energy and energy of spaces. I think a lot of people are aware of the different directions and how you have different elements that relate to each direction. So for example, like the south is fire, the north is water. I think a lot of people understand that general placement of how you would balance a space depending on the elements, but not a lot of people realize that it's actually the more powerful blend is based on your birthday. So it doesn't actually negate how how to explain it. You do feng shui over layers. So you would look at the base layer of the general directions, and then on top of that you would have a look at. So for example, if I'm looking at the feng shui of somebody's house, I would actually start by looking at the compass reading of their front door. So it's where their front door is facing. You actually have certain charts which show the energy for that particular house and what's going on in each grid of that house. So it's to do with the compass direction of your front door. And then on top of that, you need to then activate the personal best directions of whoever is living in that house. So for example, like if somebody tells you, oh, you can get the perfect feng shui doing X, Y, Z, it's not really true, because it's also dynamic over time. It changes every 20 years. Like you have a base level of feng shui that's like a 20-year cycle. Then you have a yearly cycle and even a monthly cycle. So your 20-year cycle is based on the compass degree of your front door, but the yearly cycle is the same for everybody. And then on top of that, you have your own personal directions that are the most powerful for you. So those are the ones that will affect you most in the house. So your personal best directions are super important. So that's why it's good to look up your birthday, find out what your feng shui archetype number is / Kua number.
Whoa, okay.
My mind is blown right
so
now.
much. So let's go.
Sorry, it's quite...
No.
This
This is perfect. We just have so many questions because we would like to know this, learn this. We are currently decorating our new home and we would love to implement all of this.
I mean, obviously, this is what she does professionally, so we're not going to be able to go to the extreme.
It's okay. No, we're broadening our minds. Can we start with, where does feng shui originate from?
So it originates in China many, many thousands of years ago. They actually found evidence of it even 6,000 years ago in sort of like inscriptions in temples and things like that.
Cool. And
the very first use of feng shui was actually to decide on the burial locations of like royal members of the households. Because the Chinese believed as well that you had to be buried in an auspicious direction, or it actually would affect that person's transition into the next realm, and it might also affect the prosperity of the family. So that was the very first start of feng shui. But then what it really turned into is it became a way to find the best location to put the temples and the kingdoms and palaces, to find the best place within the topography to place those important buildings for the most important families that live there. So that's how it really started out. For example, like you wanted to make sure that wherever the palace was located, that it was protected from enemies and invaders, that it was protected from like the harsh winds depending on the seasonal changes. It needed to have a proximity to, for example, like a river, so that they would have like a path to be able to
get water.
Yeah, to get water and to water crops. And then also because people used boats a lot of that time too, so to be able to even bring in, external supplies from different areas. So it became sort of more of a topographical sort of,
right.
Like that's how it sort of started.
That's fascinating because there are all the major ancient monoliths across the world line up with certain astrological events and phenomenon, like the Great Pyramids of Giza.
That's right.
Which is fascinating because that implies that the pyramids were being feng shuied this entire time. And everyone's like, well, it's like, but it makes sense.
And feng shui has even been used, like a lot of people don't realize, but many things are even built on ley lines. So even now, like for example, like St. Paul's Cathedral in London is built over a ley line. And I think there's even like an access to Buckingham Palace as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of these really important buildings are actually built on ley lines because there's a certain energy that flows through that.
So ley lines and nexus points are a scientific phenomenon as much as they are a spiritual phenomenon. Can you explain for our audience what a ley line and a nexus point is?
I actually don't know what a nexus point
Just
is.
a convergence of multiple ley lines.
Oh,
it's almost like
interesting.
you would view, like a nexus point's almost like what you would view like a chakra in the human body, and the meridians are like ley lines. So the
Yes,
chakra.
that's exactly right. Exactly how you're explaining it is, I suppose it's like a very strong meridian point where the most amount of chi would be flowing through, and so that's why they would pick that, because the most amount of energy and the strongest chi would be flowing through those points.
I believe we have figured out that ley lines do actually exist, right? There are parts of the world that have like heightened electromagnetic activity. Am I right? Or am I making shit up? I'm not a scientist.
I think you are correct. It's
Not a
not something that
scientist.
I've looked into a huge amount, but it's quite interesting that like for example, like Stonehenge is also built on ley lines. So there must be something to it. I've not really gone into the scientific aspect of that, so I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah, I've always wondered on like, sort of chicken or the egg with those phenomenons. It's like, well, did they build the pyramids at a ley line or a nexus point? Or did the pyramids create an energy portal that, or whatever, these ritual sites like, the ones you just mentioned?
No, I think it's
Stonehenge.
the opposite. I think that the ley line was there first. It's not that the building created the ley line. The ley line was already there. And I think that there is some relationship as well to cosmology. It's also to do with the alignment of the stars. I think that also affects something, because like even like non-feng shui buildings, when you go back and have a look at a lot of the ones that you're talking about too, they have actually been aligned in terms of the stars, and there's a cosmic connection.
Yeah,
And that's kind of what you're talking about with, it's almost like using your natal chart to be able to figure out the feng shui of your building or of your home or something
Yes.
like that, which I always end up bringing it back to like simulation theory. But if we're like living inside of a simulation and we're in some sort of game, it would make sense that our particular coding coming in, which is our natal chart, would then interact with the world a very specific way. So everything around us would create different flows of energy that would help us in prosperity or whatever we need.
Exactly, and because we're all slightly different, our receptors are a little bit different, which is why, like for example, like when I'm relating back to feng shui. So for example, like if you're living in the same home, you might have a house that's really great for you, but maybe it's not so great for Cody if you have a completely different energy.
I've been telling
type.
her this the entire time. I'm just kidding.
That's it.
Yeah, because you're receiving the energy in a different way. It's flowing to you from a different direction. Like you have a stronger direction that has a better. That's sort of you're tuning into that frequency.
Is there
in a
any
different way?
Is there any way to do it for two people? Like
Yeah,
if
we
you're
got to get on
doing
the
a
same
home
frequency.
So what you can do is that you can't really, but basically what you do is, for example, like if the front door, so if you were to measure your front door compass direction, you would have a look and see who is that better for. So if, for example, if the front door facing direction was better for Tanya, then you would then try to make sure that the bed head would be facing a better direction for Cody. So you would balance it out that way.
Oh.
So you look for different areas within the house that you can try to balance it between the couples.
That is so fascinating. My God, I feel like you're a mathematician or something like that.
And then usually you try to, like whoever is the main breadwinner, you also try to balance it that way. So if you were starting from scratch to find a house, it would be more important, for example, like if somebody is the stay-at-home, whether it's the mother or the father, whoever is the main breadwinner, you would try to pick a good compass direction that'd be more auspicious for whoever is bringing the money in, because the family is more dependent on their earnings. That's sort of where you would start from if you're starting from scratch in terms of trying to look for a new location.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a story about Tanya. Okay. When we first started dating, the first time she slept over my place, which was very like artist, lofty, everything spray painted.
It was a dude's room.
And my room was a dude room. It was very like blandish, simple.
Him and his sister
It's a
lived
desk,
together, yeah.
It's a bed, it's a TV stand, and then I got some plaques and shit on the wall. So she slept over and she like woke up in the morning. It was like, I don't know, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. And she turns to me and says, yeah, pretty much that the feng shui, like my whole, she didn't use the term feng shui.
I said
She
his back, so where he wrote at his desk, his back was to the door. And that's like, I feel like the number one
Feng Shui
thing.
101.
Feng Shui 101.
You're not sitting in the power position.
And also the head of his bed was facing a window. And I was like, those are two things I know you're not supposed to be doing. And so I was like, can I literally change your room?
Although sometimes it depends, because the thing is that like you'll go through general rules. So generally you don't want to have your bed head against a window because it's not great. But if it's the only way that you cannot sleep in a bad direction, because you have 4 good directions, but you also have 4 bad directions. And so one of those bad directions is your total loss direction. You have a disease direction. And so, for example, like depending on what's going on in your life, you would sometimes actually choose to sleep underneath the window so as to avoid, your worst
The
directions.
sudden death one. Or
Yes,
something.
I mean,
Oh my
it's not
God.
going to be. I won't go so far as it's not going to kill you, because I do believe that your, in terms of your death date, I feel like that's part of destiny that Feng Shui can't
Mess
make you
with.
die. Or,
Yeah.
It's above Feng Shui's pay grade.
Yes,
your death
that
date.
yes.
All I have to say is that when Tanya woke up and said to me, "Your Feng Shui is all off," and she said, "Can I change your room around?" And I said, "Sure, okay." And she's like, "Okay, like right now?" And I said, "Right now,
I
it's
love it.
6 a.m." And she said,
6
"Yeah,
a.m.
sure, be real quick." In 15 minutes, she moved my bed. She moved all my furniture, changed everything around.
Love it.
I couldn't believe it. Like before I could finish my cup of coffee, we had moved everything. And my productivity skyrocketed, my health skyrocketed, and that was like a defining moment where I went, "This girl like makes my life and me better." Yeah, like immediately. It was such a immediate. I brought her to my home for not even 24 hours, and it was like, bam! This witch
wonderful.
just fucking sprinkled some fairy dust on me,
That's
and
fabulous.
it's fabulous. So okay.
So even you feel it straight away. It's interesting because some people it takes a little while for them to feel the shift. Some people they feel it immediately. Some people it takes a little while.
Immediate.
Yeah.
He
Immediate.
also reads energy really, really well. He
Yeah.
can feel everything. So it makes
Very,
sense.
very sensitive. Very sensitive
very
baby boy. I don't know
sensitive
why I'm making
boy.
this voice, but I just feel very sensitive. Okay, so
And have you ever been in spaces? I'd like to hear about your experience. Have you ever been in spaces that you were so disturbed or so creeped out that you had to leave the space?
I can't walk into. I can hardly spend any time in like thrift stores or vintage stores. I get sick.
Interesting.
So like I'll walk in and I'm just like I can't. I'll start. My head will spin. I'll get nauseous. I'll get a headache, and then I'll go to the owner. I'm like, "Who owns this place?" I'm like, "Sir, you need to sage of this bitch." I'm like, "This is this out of control in here."
I'm the opposite. I'm like, can I have all these old things and bring them into our house?
I love them actually. I really
love
when there's some
antiques
history
and
in
vintage.
them.
Good for you two.
But
You
a
must
tip
have
is
healthy
though, but
boundaries.
before you bring anything into your house, well, everyone sages, but the other thing you can do is lavender spray. So you mix lavender essential oil with water, like distilled water, and you spray it on anything. You can spray it on yourself as well. Like if you've been in the thrift store, you spray it on yourself, spray it on the items, because some people are allergic to sage, and especially like the smoke, they can start sneezing. But lavender spray is really good. It takes away that any residual energy. It's like you've literally like energetically cleared it.
You hear that? People
Yeah.
leave that lavender spray right by your front door.
Exactly.
Spray
Yeah.
everything.
All right, we're gonna go
Anybody
experiment
comes
with
in,
some
it's a good
lavender
one.
spray.
It's a good sage alternative. Sage is great too, but lavender spray is also good because
Oh.
Have you ever? Yeah, we need another good spray. We use a lot of rose water, but not to clear things we bring in. We use it more for like we use the term lighten the field. We use it like we use it for like clearing, but it's not like sage can be kind of heavy. Like people get
rose
sick.
is actually more for rose spray. It's actually interesting because rose is a flower, and the essence from a rose has one of the highest frequencies of any flower. So I think that's why people generally love roses so much, is that the actual frequency of the rose is much higher than almost any other flower.
Whoa.
And so it actually lifts the frequency. So it doesn't so
Yeah.
much clear negative energy, but it actually promotes positive energy.
Yes.
It actually
Yes, we say lighten the
That's
field.
cool.
That's why we use sage to clear, and we use Palo Santo to uplift, and like rose for us, when we use rose, it just feels like you can breathe a little bit, you know? Does lavender have a similar effect, or is it more clearing?
no, lavender is for clearing.
Okay, great. We're going to experiment with some
And the
lavender.
other one as well is, I don't know how to say it properly, but ylang ylang or ilang ilang.
Oh,
Lang lang?
like, yeah,
yeah,
that
like
one-
YLANG.
Yeah, I've
however you
always
say-
wanted to use that. It
Yes.
smells amazing.
And that one as well has, see, I don't like the smell of that one as much, but that and rose essential oil, they have the highest frequencies of the flowers.
Oh my God, that's so good to know.
Yeah, I try to use this. There's this herb I really like. What's the thing I burn that you hate?
Oh, Copal.
Oh, copal. I think copal is super powerful, but
yes.
she hates it.
Because it's sort of a bit like frankincense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She always thinks it smells like. Smells like chemicals.
It smells like chemicals and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
When I
Yeah,
burn it.
I don't mind it. I think it depends which one you get, because some of them, when I've burnt them, I'm like, I really don't like that. It just does not smell right to me. But I think you actually get different types and different grades of it, because I actually do find some of them smell like urine.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe that's what I'm smelling. I'm smelling urine.
Okay, so I
Bring
think
the
you two
urine
are
into the
more
house.
aligned. And I just think it's powerful.
But it's like, it's sort of quite similar to frankincense. It has a similar, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What have you seen transformationally with the people you were like? What's the craziest story or miracle you've seen where you move things around, similar to moving your trash out of your success
Yeah.
corner, right? What do you have any stories where you've seen things, or your clients have seen things that just blow your mind and affirm you're doing the right thing?
I have a few. I mean, some of them are funny. It's not necessarily. I mean, some of them are life changing. Some of them are not. I'll talk about one just for me personally. This is an interesting one. I'd had this dream about my master, who I had learnt Feng Shui from. And in my dream, she was coming and she was touching my bedroom wall. And she's like, there's something here. And so she's touching my bedroom wall, and I have a mural behind my bed head. And I didn't think much of it. And I didn't finish the dream because my cat jumped on me and woke me up in the middle of the night. So I was like, oh, damn, I wanted to hear the rest of the message. But fast forward like a week or two later, this is quite interesting. I got out I was with a friend of mine and we were looking for different properties for her. She was thinking about buying a house. And her husband had an EMF reader. And I'm like, oh, what's that? And because his wife had been sick before, he wanted to make sure that there was no EMF issues with any of the houses that they were potentially going to buy. And so he says, oh, do you want to borrow it and check out your house? And this is actually what was quite interesting, is that because I also, as part of Feng Shui, I do dowsing to check if there's any geopathic stress lines, and I like to check for things like that.
Dowsing rods.
Yeah, the dowsing rods. So I do some dowsing sometimes. And what was actually quite interesting is that exactly where my master had been touching the wall in my bedroom, I had a really high EMF reading in the wall. So there must have been some faulty electricity. And it was interesting because I always avoided sleeping on that side of the bed. I hated sleeping there, and I'd always like roll onto my husband's side of the bed because I couldn't stand being on that side. And so it made sense because I must have been picking up the EMF. But the EMF reader picked it up, and it was really funny because she was touching the wall on that particular spot. So I thought that was quite a fun one.
I love that she came through and she's like, fix this.
Yeah, she's like, there's something not right here. And yeah, so I thought it was like, so I've had that fixed since I had to get an electrician in to fix the wiring because there was something that was not.
That's amazing.
Not right, and I thought it's interesting.
We interviewed a medium recently on this show, and all the equipment pretty much was malfunctioning the entire time. And of course, when they leave and someone who's not a medium comes on, all the equipment works. Of course, at the time, like Tony, our studio president's like, thinks we have to buy all new equipment. This is a massive thing for the company.
But I was going to say as well, like back to what you said as well, that are there any other stories with clients and things like that too? There's been quite a few. One of them was a client that she came to me for romance. It was more of a relationship issue. She really wanted to get married, and I think things were not really going so great in her relationship. And so we did some Feng Shui that was specifically for that. And what was interesting is that literally that night after she placed her activations, everything was done. That night when her partner came over, he wasn't actually living in the house with her. He was they were seeing each other for quite long term, but they hadn't been living together yet. He came over, and after about like 20 minutes, they broke up. And so she was like, she called me and she's like, oh, this is terrible. This is awful. This is, oh my gosh, I put the activations in. It's the opposite of what I want. I want to get married. I want this situation. But then it was really interesting because 9 days later, she then met her now husband.
Oh, wow.
So she met him 9 days later, and then they got married 9 months after that happened. So I thought that was really great. So it doesn't always, like even with Feng Shui, it doesn't always look like how you think it's going to be. You can't... Like, so in this situation, I suppose I shouldn't be saying that you can't make somebody marry you if they're not interested, but he wasn't the right guy. But what I found quite interesting is she was panicking about it, but I'm like, well, actually to me, it's showing the fact that he had such a fast reaction, even though like it wasn't anything that was obvious. It's not like she painted hearts all over her ceiling. Yeah. She didn't do anything that's strange. It's just that he walked in and was just like, I'm out of here. I'm done. So in a way, it was great because it gave her this immediate clean break. So it was like, so I thought that was quite a good one.
Okay. Let's break this down. The implications of Feng Shui. Okay. So we've had situations where my mom will give my dad a stone, right? And we understand that stones, there's piezoelectricity, there's some actual things to stones, right? But my dad's a secular person, so I just say to him, Dad, think of it as a placebo totem. I go, think of it as, I'm holding this for energy, and your mind thinks the energy when you hold it, when you put it in your pocket, and therefore, via the placebo effect, you get more energy, right? I'm like, we don't need to wooify this. Sure, you can just think that. But the implications of Feng Shui, I'm trying to figure out what that says about reality. And is it the conscious act of directing your consciousness towards rearranging your physical space, or does this have to do with the flow of energy and the geometrical nature of the prism of reality or the simulation of reality, and that you are accessing these sort of, I don't even know, like sacred geometry points and using a compass as well, to, I guess, increase the flow of energy. Because I will say our teachers always, the first thing you do in a ceremony is the north. You open the north, the east, the south, the west, the heavens, the earth. Like it's very directional, when we do ceremonies. So what the fuck is going on? Like, what is this implying about reality that Feng Shui works?
I actually believe that it's happening on all those levels. I believe, yes. I mean, placebo effect in general is a huge thing. But I think that it's a lot more than that, because with Feng Shui, you don't actually have to even you actually don't even have to believe in it for it to work. And a lot of the things you don't actually need to even be consciously aware. Like, for example, there are some things like when you're writing affirmations and vision boards and different things that it's a requirement for the Feng Shui to work that you see it, that it's not necessarily hidden in a closet. So some things you actually have to see, so it's within your space and you're registering that all the time. But you don't actually have to believe in it for it to still work. So I do believe that on some level it is actually shifting the chi. It is changing the flow of the energy. And even at a practical level, so for example, like when you were talking before about how Cody was sitting with his back to the door, so he wasn't sitting in the power position; he was sitting against was he against a wall as well?
He was facing a wall, but his back was completely to a door.
Yes. So for example, like even that has been proved in a scientific context. There are many levels of Feng Shui. Some of them are really woo-woo and very out there, and then some of them are actually based in science. So for example, like if you are sitting at a desk and your back is to the door, your reptilian brain is constantly activated. You don't realize, but subconsciously you're in an alert state for predators coming through that door because you're not facing the door. So when you're actually turning and you're facing the door and the door is in your field of vision, it actually changes your brain waves, and they've measured that. So
wow,
even
amazing.
that is not even a woo-woo thing. It's actually just a logical way to sit, because, for example, like even though, we still have a reptilian brain, even though we aren't expecting a lion to come through the door, you're not expecting somebody to come through, there is still a part of our brain that will always be on alert for our safety. It's just this fundamental thing of human nature. So even things like that, there are some practical applications that make sense. So even the way that you have your bed, you wouldn't want to have like the door behind your bed head, because again, you're on alert. You can't see who's coming in. So you're never in that relaxed state. So for example, like when your brain waves change because you can see the door, you then become, you go from sort of like a beta state into an alpha state, and even beyond then. And you become much more creative. You're much more open and receptive to downloads. Your thinking is a lot clearer.
Are there any other things in Feng Shui that are more like that are kind of scientifically proven, or something that people can use that isn't just based on like their birthday and everything, like just small things that they can actually do in their home?
I'm trying to think in terms of scientific. I'm not sure off the top of my head something that's
even not scientific.
What are the basics for people?
But what I have noticed, even as well, like for example, when I was talking about the dowsing before, what I did notice is that there was a correlation between, so for example, like when you're dowsing, you're looking for geopathic stress. But what I noticed that dowsing rods also pick up EMF. So where I noticed as well, especially when I was first starting and I was looking for geopathic stress lines in my house, I noticed that all of the place, because like you cure it by putting in these like copper rods, because they're supposed to sort of do something to shift the energy. But what I noticed is that all of the places that I had placed the copper rods from when I was dowsing, when I had a look with an EMF reader, EMF was being picked up on all of those locations as well. So I'm picking up geopathic stress, but I'm also picking up high EMF. So I think that in terms of dowsing, there is actually a scientific correlation even with the electricity that's coming from different spots. So yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are some basic Feng Shui things that people could do in their own homes, even if they can't like afford somebody that could do a Feng Shui specialist or master? Is there something that they can do in their home to kind of just help with the energy a bit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the number one thing is if you can't do anything, start with the clutter, because everybody can get rid of the clutter. Clutter is such a huge one that even if you're getting a Feng Shui expert in, if you don't get rid of all the junk in your space, the broken things, just having too much of just junk in your space, nothing can flow through. So just making sure that your house is clutter-free and clean is like, it's so invaluable. You can't even start doing Feng Shui until that is something that is put in place.
What do you mean by clutter? Because Tanya may be a low-key hoarder.
Yeah, hoarding is an issue.
It's, how dare you?
What?
I really like antiques. I'm sorry. We have a 6 foot tall dinosaur bust sticking out.
I like him.
We
That's
have
not clutter.
a giant cheetah.
That's not clutter.
Yeah, but everything else is like small, like they're like antiques and stuff like that, like cool knickknacks that to me, I'm putting them in the space. It's not they're just thrown
Let's
about.
define clutter. If we have a pile of sticks that Tanya has found when we go on walks that are
but they're under the altar.
Yeah,
They're like when we go to a special place and I'm like, this stick feels right to me.
I love a good stick.
Excuse me, Stick Nation.
I love a stick. Shout out Stick Nation. I love a good stick. I just want to know, is that clutter?
It depends on it depends on the amount of stuff you have. Like, for example, can you walk through the room and feel like the air is flowing through clearly, or are you stepping over things? So I think that if you are locating clutter, so for example, if you have a collection of something and that collection is contained to a cabinet, or that all your sticks are all in a basket in a
under my
corner,
altar,
then that's completely fine. But it's more if you have so much of it that it starts to look like it is the antique store, and you can't, you can't get around it. What I find as well is that if you have things like, for example, mounted on the wall versus it cluttering up the floor, that's sort of a better thing, and that you don't want to have every single surface covered. You want to make sure that your bench tops are actually usable, that your kitchen table is usable. A big one as well is like your work desk in the office. Like, is it clear? Can you concentrate? So that's how I would sort of have a look at that.
Okay, clutter has been defined.
Yeah, so clutter has been defined, and you also want to make sure there's no clutter by your front door. So you never want to leave shoes on the front door. So if you're a shoes-off household, you want to put the shoes away.
Guilty.
Yeah, because a lot of the energy comes through the front door. So that's the second place I would look at is make sure that your front door is clear, that it's clean, that it's well lit, that there's nothing blocking up the entrance.
Yeah.
So those ones are, very, very important. And then after that, I would have a look in the bedroom. You want to make sure that there's nothing underneath the bed. And if you have to put something underneath the bed, put it down by where your feet are. You don't want to have anything that's within like an arm's length, like around you or under you, or especially underneath the top half of your body. If it was on your feet, and that's okay, but I'd be looking out to make sure that there's no clutter happening underneath the bed. A lot of people use that for storage, but it's not a good place to put your storage.
That's what I heard also, that you're not supposed to have anything under your bed. We actually did like a deep clean and got rid of everything.
Yeah, it's important because at night as well, like your etheric body is larger than your actual body, so it picks up everything that's within that surrounding. And then you also want to make sure that there is nothing in your bedroom that is telling like a negative story. So you don't want to have any negative art. You don't want to have any sort of like horror books or anything that is too overstimulating in the bedside table. You want to be really careful about that.
Okay,
yeah.
I want to know, because this is kind of hard for us. I fall asleep to cartoons, and we have a TV in our bedroom.
Okay.
And we also keep our phones on airplane mode, but near us.
Yes, and I want it dark because scientifically better for you.
He also has to look at sports articles to go to bed.
I read sports articles.
He's just as guilty as me as using electronics before bed.
It puts me to sleep. It's the one piece of normalcy I have left in my fucking strange
everybody
life.
does it, but it's it's like scientifically it's bad for you to look at any screens before you go to sleep, but at least you're watching cartoons. So cartoons, at least that's something that's not so bad. But it's more the issue is that when you turn the TV off, feng shui wise, the TV also acts as a mirror, so you have to be really careful because it also becomes a reflective surface, and you don't want any mirrors that reflect the bed.
Ah, damn it!
Whoa.
So that's the thing. So you can have the TV there, but when you go to bed, I would actually cover it in. I would get like a shawl, or I would get like a sheet or something. Put something over the top of the TV because it does act like a mirror, unless you have an extremely matte screen.
And what does that do?
Yeah, why do we not want mirrors?
You don't want any mirrors in the bedroom that reflect the bed or that you can see yourself in or that actually show the bed. So for example, like if you were a single person, it like doubles your loneliness. And if you're a couple, it's actually like inviting extra people into the bed.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's like, it sort of encourages like extramarital affairs and things like that too.
Wild. And a television can do this?
Yes, because it acts like a mirror.
Is this true to ancient feng shui? This is what they say?
Yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. Give us some more sweet feng shui tea. What are some other things that people can take away? Like the simple stuff that they can go do. We know, so decluttering, take care of your door, your bedroom.
Nothing within arm's distance that's crazy in your bed.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So be careful. So even if like you have a book and it's inside the nightstand, if the topic of that book is something that's negative, that will affect you in your sleep. And so if we're going through, so we can go through each.
What about weapons? What if you have weapons in case there's an intruder?
I guess
and I keep it next to the bed.
I understand what you mean, like having some mace or something. I suppose you have
or
to
like a bat.
Or bear spray.
We have all those things next to our bed just in case.
I would prefer. I mean, if I'm going to pick over what's like. The thing is that, like, when you have weapons, it's almost like you're expecting then something bad to happen. So it's not great feng shui. But I would pick the bat over, for example, having a knife or something sharp, because a bat is, I don't know, maybe it's because it's more of a rounded object rather than it, and it's not only used for a violent purpose, it's also used in sports. So it doesn't have that same, it doesn't have that same energy to it. But for example, I wouldn't have, a lot of people like to use like ceremonial swords as a decoration. they shouldn't be on display in your house at all in any room.
Oh wow, in any room?
Let alone the bedroom. You don't want to have anything. And even in the kitchen, you don't even want to have knives out. So if you have like your cutting knives, some people have them in a butcher block that are on for convenience. I would never have it.
Why?
Like, as a Feng Shui expert, I would never do it. Because there's something about it that sort of promotes, it does promote violence, and there's like, it's sort of like a cutting energy. So it would be the same as like in Feng Shui, you would also never have a cactus or a spiky plant in your space.
At all?
So at all, no. You would never have a cactus. So you can have plants, so like in your living space, but you want to choose something that has a round leaf to it and that doesn't have any spike to it.
So those have to be outside?
Like, yeah, it needs to be outside and as far away from the house as possible. Because what it does is it promotes like tension between people. It causes little fights, little like prickly arguments. It actually creates this argumentative sort of tension.
This is interesting because at first, I can get like the flow, like creating flow and openness and ease, like to help the energy move through. And now we're starting to get to things that imply essentially like attracting certain things or amplifying certain things. But I guess if I think of this from like a rationalist standpoint, whatever you see in your environment, you absorb. And I guess there is like a subliminal energy that comes with everything.
There absolutely is. So it's working on two levels. For example, and think about it this way. Just say you have a couple and they're fighting all the time. They're really, really angry. And then just say it's a full moon and it's like something has triggered somebody off. Do you want to have the knives out in the kitchen in case someone loses their mind in a split second? It's like you want to also have things away from a practical point of view. It sort of creates a buffer between people's behavior and their reactions as well. It gives them time to think about doing something. There's also something called like Sha-Qi energy. So when you have things that are too angular pointing at you, so whether it's like the corner of a building that's facing into your space or something that's like triangular that's pointing at you, it's also the same thing as like as having like knife cutting energy.
What's that called? Sha-Qi?
Like a Sha-Qi.
Sha-Qi?
So it's like, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm just literally going through our place going, is there anything like this?
I have a question, and I'm not done with this line of questioning, but this is for our producer, Aaliyah, because, she's going through a situation like this. What happens? So, I mean, you're talking about inanimate objects causing disruptions in your life. What about if you have a roommate or you're living with somebody there's a tumultuous relationship? What can that bring about? I think does that have greater implications than if you have a troubled relationship in the household?
Well, of course it does. I mean, even Feng Shui aside, of course it does, because you're living in that energy. It's very hard to dissipate that if you have somebody that is really negative and making your life a nightmare that's in your space. And the thing is that you don't have, because it's a joint space, you don't have full control over even being able to control the Feng Shui of that space. So it's a really difficult thing to do. I think all that you can do is to activate your best directions, to make sure that you are sleeping in your best direction, to make sure that at least the space that you have control over is as positive as possible.
I've heard about these things called like the mirror balls or something that are hung or something that reflect or deflect the like bad energy or something like that. Is that a thing?
Mirror balls, not as much. It's more the convex mirror, the use of a convex mirror.
Okay.
And usually you would use that on the outside of a house. So for example, like you might have a convex mirror that would be out on the outside of your front door if you, for example, had a home that was opposite a cemetery or like a very yin area, sort of like if you were living across the road from a hospital. So that sort of deflects the energy from coming into your house. Mm-hmm. But once you're already within the house, it's quite difficult to ward that off if somebody's living in your space.
I lived in college next to a haunted bed and breakfast where all the chorus, I guess, had fallen and they all died by breaking their necks on the pews. Like really, really horrific. So they closed down the church and it became a haunted bed and breakfast. And our house was so haunted. It was so haunted all the time. And they said that it created this like portal of ghosts that would go in and out of people's houses. And I could have had a convex mirror.
You had a convex mirror.
I had no idea. That's all I needed.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
This is pretty interesting. It's kind of blowing my mind a little bit because something that we've been taught from our teachers about, creating an altar when you do a ceremony. And, we have an altar in our home. We have an altar in the studio. And, it's always funny when you do a ceremony, the name altar, because the idea is literally the positioning of and the power of these totems and icons is altering your reality, right? And it's almost like what I'm hearing from you is we're talking about the alterification of a home, turning your home into an altar within itself.
Yes.
So that's really interesting because I've never thought about that. But the truth is I wouldn't necessarily really have understood an altar if I hadn't like seen an altar change reality in a ceremony. A lot of times you're in a ceremonial space, you're sitting there, there's a candle on the altar, it's dark, and one of the first things you see is something coming out of the altar or coming through the altar. So that's really interesting. So is this all really to just create more alignment with the divine and with the spirit world? Is that what this is, if we really boil it down?
Yes, I wouldn't disagree with you there at all, yes. I never thought about it in terms of you're creating your home as an altar. I love that.
I have never heard of any feng shui for a bathroom. Does a bathroom do anything?
Bathroom's interesting. So you don't activate. So how it works is like when you're doing the feng shui for your home, you sort of tend to ignore like bathrooms and garages because they're sort of a passive space. And because the energy gets flushed because through the shower, through the toilet, things get flushed out. So you don't really activate them. But where the implication with bathrooms is, for example, like if you were looking to buy a new house, you ideally don't want to have a bathroom in one of your best areas. So, for example, just say the southwest is your success direction and you are going to look for a new home. You don't want to have the bathroom in your success direction because you're literally flushing your success energy down the drain.
So how would you stop that? Would you shut the door?
Well, you would keep the door. I mean, you would keep the toilet lid closed as much as possible. You would keep the door closed as much as possible. You make sure that it's clean, that it's always like sanitized, but it will never be as good as a home that didn't have it in the southwest, for if the southwest was a good direction for you.
Oh
so that's sort of the implications of it. You wouldn't go above and beyond to activate the bathroom, but you keep it clean and try to make it as nice as possible.
All right. How much is cleanliness the factor into feng shui?
Well, cleanliness is next to godliness, so it's pretty up there.
Oh yeah. Oh, damn it.
Sorry. Thank you for telling him that.
No. I'm clean. I'm clean.
Yeah.
I'm clean. Mm-hmm. But is there another level?
You don't want to be so crazy that you're then no longer living in the space and the whole place becomes like a showroom that you are not living in. Yeah. So you can't take it to that extreme.
Now, is there actually, because you said that it could be it is based off of your birth date. So a room that, say, like an elder is living in versus a child is living in, but say all these different people live in a home together. So you have a child, an elder, and then some middle-aged people.
Yeah.
What is like the main difference between those three spaces without like knowing their birth dates or something like that? Is there something that you would need to do for them?
It's sort of, the thing is because there's such a combination of different things. So it also depends too, even sometimes on the, I always go by personal birth date in terms of like who should get which room in the house because, so for example, like if you're housing many people within a home, I would have a look at which bedrooms are available and try to pick the best bedroom so that their bed head could be placed in that room according to the best direction. So in terms of that, it's irrelevant to what their age is if someone is older or younger. But then like base level feng shui, like different areas of the house will correspond to, so for example, the west is like the general direction for children. So for example, like if you were having problems with multiple children in your house or they weren't getting along very well, you would have a look at what's going on in the west because that is what's generally affecting all of the children in the household, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then, for example, like you have certain directions that would be like, so for the northwest, that would be the sort of the patriarch of the family. The northwest corresponds to the patriarch and to and then often like the male breadwinner of the house, whereas the southwest would correspond to like the mother energy of the home. So you would do different things depending on, does that make sense? It's not necessarily the age, but it could be their hierarchy or position within the family.
Oh, wow.
Like different areas would correspond to the relationship of who that person is within the family.
Yeah.
Do you often come into spaces and find that unconsciously the people were doing literally all of the things that they're supposed to be doing, like within feng shui? Are you ever like blown away? Like, nope, that's where it should be. Like,
yes, which is quite amazing actually. Even down to colors, because colors have a frequency and colors can also activate a different outcome. So there's a whole like spectrum of colors, and each color will correspond to something. And I've noticed that with some people when they're very in tune. So for example, like our friend Erica that you've met before, like often she will have things in the exact right place because I think intuitively she knows that it feels right in that particular area. And I have noticed it with some people when they're very intuitive or they're doing something that requires a lot of intuition for a living, they are already doing that. They're not actually sure why they've done it, but it just feels right.
What's the color for intuition?
Oh, there's not really one as such. Like, so for example, like the color for, I suppose maybe you could consider violet a color of intuition, but like in Feng Shui, so for example, like if you wanted to have greater clarity, you would use the color blue, like a sort of an aqua, like a very light aqua blue. That would be the color that would help you sort of clear your mind if you're trying to clear your thoughts.
Yeah, that's the same for color psychology. Yeah.
And then so for example, like the color orange is like the color for celebration. So orange is a really great color if you are getting together like with family members. It's a really great color to have like a tablecloth on your kitchen table in the color of orange because it actually is like activating celebration frequency. Whereas, for example, like peach is the color of joy. So if you find that there's a lot of tension in the family, it's quite good to have like, for example, like peach colored throw pillows on the living room sofa because it's sort of like tapping into that frequency.
Our new place, we are thinking about doing like kind of like jewel tones, like big, like bright colors in our home. And we've never had that before. So we're like, okay, let's just like play around with it. And we also love Wes Anderson. And that
Is it going to be full Wes Anderson?
No, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, but we want to get weird with it. We don't want to, although we want it to be light. We want it to feel light.
But so are there particular colors that are good for different rooms, or is it based on directions?
It's based on, so the safest color for everybody is beige and white all around as your base color. But I really don't like beige. I think the beige is very depressing. Mm-hmm. So with me, it's like I also would say like to do something that's almost closer to a very light peach if you're just going for a general color that you want on every single wall, or to stick with like the color white and then go from there. That's sort of what I've been taught because that's the safest way that you don't accidentally activate like a negative flying star or some energy that's in the space.
Flying star?
So
is that what you said? A flying
the
star?
flying star. So for example, it's quite difficult to explain because it's like, it's quite full on. But for example, like when, so if I take the front door reading of a house, that front door compass direction will then relate to a certain chart. So when I have a look at the chart, it'll actually say like what is the energy for each area in that house. Like you'll divide your house into a grid of 9 squares and then like overlay that onto a house depending on your front door compass direction. And so for example, like you might have, I suppose like the two colors you have to be most wary of is where are you locating the color red and where are you locating the color blue. So for example, if in your 20-year cycle and then also in the yearly cycle, you have an energy that's called the disaster star 5. So they use numbers to you have like 9 different types of energy. So it's not really so much about the number, but each number is actually like representative of a type of frequency and a type of energy. So for example, the densest energy is called the disaster star 5. Or /transformation star 5.
Sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It's like, I know, it's quite full on. But for example, like if you had the number 5 in your northwest, whoever is sleeping in that northwest bedroom, especially like if it's the disaster star 5 for the yearly energy, because it changes like every lunar Chinese New Year. So for example, like whoever is sleeping in that room that has that number 5 energy, if it's not cured with, for example, like a wind chime, then they will feel the density of that energy. It will make everything a lot slower in their life. Like life would just become a lot more difficult, if that makes sense. It's like you're walking through mud. It's like you're in this thickness of mud. And because that's an earth energy, if you were to then paint that room red, that actually stimulates, for example, like fire stimulates the earth, like it stimulates the earth energy. So if you were to use the color red there, it would actually make that situation even worse. And it would increase the density of that energy in a negative way. Because I love color, like I'm all about it. I also design like decor and I have a whole decor line. I really love color, but you have to be very, very careful where you're putting that color. And so, and then with the color blue, so red is like, the major one where you have to be very careful about where you're locating it. And then also it's not a good idea to have like, for example, an all red bedroom because red is a very yang color. So if you're going to be sleeping in that room, you really shouldn't have red in that bedroom, especially if it's like a whole red wall. You could use it, for example, like in like a throw pillow as an activation for romance or for passion because there are certain specific shades of red that do that. But you wouldn't want to have the entire room red because you wouldn't sleep well. It would really affect how you're sleeping. So it's really to do with like that no color is good or bad. You just have to be very, very mindful about the location of that color.
Oh my God, we're going to need to activate you to help us with our home.
Yeah.
You said that on your website you have something where people, is it like something where they can?
Yes, I have just a free PDF so that you can check your birth date and it will tell you what your basically like what your archetype is and your best. It'll have your good and bad directions on it.
That's so cool.
So you can always put a little link to it if you want to.
Yeah, we will definitely.
You want to say it right now, anyways?
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
We'll put a link.
We'll put it down below, and then at least they can.
So many nuggets of wisdom in here. You're saying all yang energy.
So yang is sort of like the very active energy, and yin is sort of the peaceful, quiet energy. So the aim with Feng Shui is to have a balance of both, so that your home is not too yang and not too yin. Like you get that the whole point is to keep everything in balance so that the qi is flowing smoothly. But there are some areas that you want to have that are more yin. So for example, like you want your bedroom to be a more peaceful, Zen-like experience, whereas you want your living room to have more yang energy because especially if you're inviting people and you want to have more of an exciting interaction with friends and family there.
And is that based on color? Like if the bedroom, like if you wanted it to be more yin energy, is that color based or is that just all the other things?
Different things have different masculine and feminine.
Exactly. And it would also, so be like well, that's true as well. I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish too, whether you want something to feel more feminine or whether you want it to feel more masculine too. It comes down to the colors that you would use and also the shape of the furniture that you would use as well would make a difference. There's quite a bit too. Yeah.
Wow. But you're saying we want to balance.
Yes. You want to do it. You want to do a balance.
And you said clear with a wind chime moments ago. So are you saying you can clear and break up energy with a wind chime in your home?
Yes. So for example, if you have the Disaster Star 5 energy, which is the densest energy, the cure for that is to hang a 6-rod hollow metal wind chime. So there is something about the rods, like the empty metal rods, that changes like the frequency of that space. So it's not the sound of the wind chime, it's actually the shape of the rods does something to sort of lift the stagnant energy.
Wow. Well, that makes sense. Like, it's like sound healing.
And I've seen things like that because even with me, I'm like thinking, how exactly does it do that? Like, why is that? But for some reason it works. I've seen it work and it's quite incredible.
We love wind chimes, so I can feel that. And we have wind chimes in our home. She has wind chimes all over the place because...
Actually, there's a wind chime, but who knows? It could be doing bad things. I have a wooden wind chime by our front door.
No, they never do anything bad because it's interesting. It will negate negative energy, but in some places it actually will call it will actually activate positive energy too. So it's one of those cures that it can do both depending on what the energy is in that space. So sometimes it can actually stimulate abundance depending on the location as well. So they're quite incredible. I have a lot of wind chimes in my home.
Yeah,
I love them.
We do too.
Amazing. Yeah.
She puts waterfalls by the door. She does it in the studio.
I was taught to do that, but is that not correct?
Moving water?
Yes and no. So the thing is, it also depends on the compass direction of your front door, whether you should have whether the waterfall should be there or not. So for example, if you have, if you have a south-facing front door, and it's located in the south quadrant when you divide up your floor plan, you don't really want to have any water there because it's putting out the fire energy that's coming into your house. So it's
we need to check the front door.
Yeah.
So you want to check.
We have so much water by the front door.
So you have to be careful. And that's why you have to also as well, like you would never put a swimming pool in the south of your home. So for example, like if you have a backyard and your backyard is in the south, you should never have a swimming pool in the south. It's like, it's not
like
it actually creates, in that specific scenario, it actually creates like scandal. And it's interesting. It does a very specific thing in that it can actually damage your reputation and your good name.
Oh my God. Okay. This is a lot. All right.
My mind is like completely blown right now. I'm like,
Well, I mean.
And also with water too, there's, you want to make sure that it's flowing in the right direction. You never want water to be flowing away from you. So if you, so for example, like if you have like your little fountain in front of your house and assuming that it's in the correct direction, correct orientation, you never want the water to flow away from the house. It always needs to be flowing then towards the front door, not away from the front door. Mm-hmm. And that's also the same sort of principle. For example, like you have a lot of people have the wet edge, infinity edge swimming pools. You have to be very, very careful with those pools, even if they're located, for example, like ideally you would want to have a swimming pool located in the north. But the thing is, when that water falls over the edge and it's falling away from the house, people often lose a huge amount of money. So you want to have and the only cure for that is to quite literally, you need to change the jets within the pool so that the water starts flowing in the opposite direction.
Jeez.
You get a huge amount of money loss if it's flowing off the edge away from the house.
Do you ever have clients that you're just like, you need to change your pool jet direction? And they're like, what?
But they're also like, nope, that's too expensive to do. And it's like, they just lose like
I don't know what to tell you.
Money just
so this is wild and fascinating and so cool and such an education for us. Like Tanya says, I mean, our very peripheral, like superficial knowledge of Feng Shui. This is amazing.
So cool.
Is there anything you would like to leave our audience with if they just want to apply any additional tips or, what they should do, what the most important things are? Just want to leave them with anything?
That would be good. But there's so much that it's hard for me to narrow down.
What's the most important thing?
What do people get wrong a lot, maybe?
What do they get wrong a lot? I suppose because I'm trying to think of something that's accessible for everybody. So I think that the thing that people get wrong is that I think that the thing that would be most useful is, okay, walk outside of your house, close the front door, reopen the front door and walk through your house and have a look at your house as if you were entering your house for the very first time. Have a look. What is the message that my house is sending? Like, what are the pictures on the wall saying? What is my furniture saying? What is this house? If I didn't know this and I was a brand new person walking in, what is the message that my house is trying to say? Because sometimes when you're in a space for so long, you become so much a part of the space that you can't remove yourself from it. Because people can be surrounded by so many things that are telling the exact opposite story of what they want for their life. Because your house really is like a vision board of what you want for your life. And people, I think, when they're in a place for a very long time, they don't realize, oh my gosh, I have for example, a doormat that says, get lost, or or they don't realize that they have something or an artwork on the wall that is saying something like, that has a picture of a person crying and miserable and alone, and like you become like, you don't notice that. And it's interesting because now what I notice as well, like when I'm having a look, even when I was watching some documentaries the other day, when I'm watching some reality TV here and there, I now pick up on all of these things that are so interesting that really relate to what's going on. So for example, I was having a look at for some reason I started listening to Silverchair again. I wasn't like super into Silverchair when I was younger, but all of a sudden I'm really into Silverchair. And so I was watching a Daniel Johns documentary, and they were showing the inside of his house in Australia. He lives somewhere, I think around Newcastle or some area. But when I was having a look at his living room, when I had a look at the decor that he had there, I thought this is an explanation for all of the issues that you have. Your house is literally reflecting you. So for example, it was actually quite cool, like what he had. It was really edgy. But I was seeing two statues of, there were sort of tall porcelain statues of a dog. Like there was like one black dog and I think another type of, just from memory, another type of dog. And the black dog had, it's almost like the head had been taken off and then put back on. It was very askew. So it had been damaged and put back on. And I know that with him, he talks that he's like suffered from depression, he's suffered from mental illness. And I thought literally this تصطاتue of this black dog, the black dog is another name for having depression. And then the fact that the head was so disoriented, the way that it was, so it looked cool, it looked really edgy, but I thought it's like I'm literally looking at something that is inspiring mental illness just from this. And then I'm having a look at as well, he has like candles like on the table that are burnt out. So there's like candelabras with all of the wax that has come down and there's no candle left in the, so that's almost like saying that I am tired, I am burnt out, there is no energy left here. So even just from seeing the decor that people have in their houses, I find that just so interesting.
So it's not good to have candles with the wax just continuously build up? Because I just think that looks so cool. I've never done it, but I actually thought about doing it.
Well, if there was still candle left in it and you could still burn the candle,
if you keep putting a new candle in?
If you have the new candle, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
But if it's burnt out, and so for example, things like dried flowers, you don't want to have dried flowers in your house because it's like there's no chi left in those. But it was more like with this one, when I saw this dog, this black porcelain dog, that I thought it was just so interesting.
That is really interesting. It's something I think about a lot because so like art and the culture, like what's cool is always what is repressed or what is unspoken in the culture. So it tends to have a lot of rebellious energy, a lot of the edge, a lot of the emotions that are put down, depression, angst, frustration. So a lot of the art, and especially the art that rises from the underground, which is what is coolest, it will always be what's cool and celebrated, is that pain that is suppressed. So because it's suppressed, it rises up with a force and becomes the pop culture of the day.
Yeah.
And then what happens is all of us and the kids and the youth, we emulate it because we love it. And it's also simultaneously that art is giving us the freedom of emotion that's liberating us. So we're connecting to it. It's so fascinating to see how people are affected by art and the pop culture. But the pain that is coming through that art is influencing the style. And then people are taking that style and that fashion of the times and adorning themselves with it and dressing and decorating their home with that energy. And it's something we deal with. It's something we're even wondering about with our new home.
And a lot of times they deal with depression then, and they deal with all this like angst and bad stuff happening in their lives. I think it's important for us, to not let our identity get too wrapped up in the art that we take in, because the pain of that art is healing for you could become the trapping of, keep that pain trapped in your life.
Unfortunately, it really does. You have to be so careful about what you're hanging on your walls. It does affect you. It really does.
Absolutely fascinating. Nicola, you are amazing. This has been fascinating.
Yes.
We will be soliciting your services off air because we have a million questions. Is there anywhere anyone wants to find you or follow you?
Yeah, that would be great. So if they go to paradismaison.com.
How do you spell that?
So it's paradismaison.com.
All right. And we will put all of the links below. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. We're going to have you on again because it's just like so much information.
So much to talk about.
It's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole and
I'm fascinated.
We love
so
rabbit
cool.
holes.
Just thank you so much for being on the show and also giving everyone, including us, like a lot of information and that we can implement into our daily lives. So just thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Want to take us out, T?
All right. If you're still with us, please make sure to subscribe, share, follow. Also, we have patreon.com/Acid for Squares for more in-depth Acid for Squares stuff. And make sure to go follow Nicola.
And you can follow us on social media at Acid for Squares. And until next time, we love you all. Be well. Bye-bye now.
Bye.